situation. And is it time that, how rather will the government involve everyone in creation of yet another finance bill? Because I think that's the conversation that is there, that any conversation around taxing us, we should be involved. How will that happen? And did we still have this finance bill 2024 from our own national treasury, or the conversation on IMF imposing it on us is still valid?
One chacha, let me address to that concern. And first and foremost, let me say it can be a very grave situation if some of the goods that actually were coming through this financial, not finance bill, but this budgetary year. One, our people will lose a lot. One, areas of agriculture where a lot of funds were being directed to. One is the area of our milk producers, where over 1.5 billion mopping funds were budgeted for. Also money to build more facilities, factories for milk processing. Number two, there is also area of coffee, where this is there to our dear farmers. This is where 2 extra billions were budgeted in this particular financial year to top up to the cherry fund, including money for also rehabilitating those warehouses within the countrywide. Those are very serious gains, including our sugar millers. How do we now move to mitigate this and make sure that actually these goodies are not going to get lost? Because to me, these are needs that are there, and that these are serious measures to also make our country move forward. Because when you support those sectors, you are supporting the little people and the rural engines of economy. And when these kind of funds are not going to find their way to the farmers, to me, it is very critical. There is also a waiver of over 6 billion for coffee farmers. Also, it's also a very clear and a good proposal to our economy, and especially to our farmers, to enable them now to move without debt and start a new. But in this case, I would say Kenya should move to UNIMES and bring a conversation where they should also come and advise what they should do. Because I believe public participation, which now we purport that actually our finance committee did to the Republic of Kenya, I hope it wasn't enough. Because I don't think even these young people who now are seriously pushing the withdrawal of this particular were part of and parcel of that public participation. And therefore, I would wish that, in fact, there can be a forum where a conference will be held and people put their view. Because this country does not belong to the hand of state alone. It does not belong to the current executive alone. It belongs to Kenyans. Well. And therefore, a discussion should be found to find a clear roadmap on how do we move on. And those areas, maybe if you ask me, Chacha, I would say, we have a lot of money which goes to waste in the area of NIS, a very area where misuse of funds, billions of money are spawned out, unaccountable. And that's a route that we must cross to make sure that there is savings.
So you're supporting the
also there is this budget
DG to resign.
Yes, this big budget, I am in support of that. If really you are failing on your job, then you don't start to be there, and you should quit. And this is nothing to hide, because one, mismanagement of the resources of that particular sector. Also, number two, lack of giving the correct information. Also, putting other people into hot soup. Like the current situation where you want the public to understand, the country to understand that in fact the financiers were Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta and the deputy president. What a stupid kind of advice are you giving to the state?
With the name of
I would say, let us have mature and people that actually are credible, and some people can be able to stand and take a control of such a serious sector of NIS. I believe the Deputy President and his concern is too dear and important to this country. Because giving information, you must give the head and advise him accordingly. And this particular issue and this time bomb could have been realized earlier, and actually measures would have been taken.
Before getting to Ruth Kinyanjui, Honorable Mwenje, with the name of Uhuru Kenyatta now being roped in this conversation, do you also support for the NIS DG to resign as a Jubilee Member of Parliament? And, you know, with the DP coming out to speak of these issues in the public, are we having a government that is divided already?
Well, that's obvious for anyone to see. The president and the deputy president are not reading from the same script. More importantly, this NIS director was head of DPP and was appointed by the current president. So if they feel there's a problem, it is up to them. You see, as the information we are getting, as was revealed yesterday by the deputy president, is that clearly there's a problem here that is ongoing. But more importantly, there is an act called the Presidential Retirement Benefits Act. It provides for the role of a retired president. And one of the roles of a retired president is advice. Today, I tend to respect our elders. You know, the president, deputy president are our leaders, and people who've been elected, we are bound to give them the respect. But today I want to fault our sitting president, because he is the first president and the fifth in this country, but the first one who has failed to interact with his predecessors. When President Moi, retired, because we can only start from there because Kenyatta died while in office, Kibaki had been in a direct competition with President Moi. But I want to assure you that on the very first day that, that President Kibaki took over, even the house that President Moi was occupying somewhere at Adams around there, which was a government house, Kibaki was the first one to say, let him stay there. Within a year or two, these two gentlemen had even had a conversation. There was some criticism, but they were talking. By the time we were getting even to the 2007 election for President Kibaki, President Moi was supporting Kibaki. Go on to President Uhuru. Uhuru had the advantage of conversing with two retired presidents. So when you now want to make the former retired president, who has experience of 10 years, this current president has experience of less than 2 years, and you want to, every single thing that goes wrong, you want to blame him. You've denied him an office. You've done all these things. You've alienated a former president who, in my opinion, would have been the right person to call, ask him, what do you think about this situation? And he'd be the one to tell you that I think at this point, you've pushed it a bit too far. This is what you need to do, well, this is what you need to...
For the interest of time, Ruth Kinyanjui, even as I allow you to leave, of course, we're going to focus on matters KDF deployment. How then do we deal with the whole conversation on Kenyans being involved, of course, in coming up with the finance bill? Is it even possible to have Kenyans themselves suggesting where they should be taxed?
Chacha, I think one thing I can tell you about Kenya, no one has a problem in paying taxes. No one has a problem. But the way the new taxes are introduced every time, maybe that is the biggest problem I see, because we are not even done with the housing levy. Then we are in a whole spectrum where we have all these other new laws. The other issue is the issue of public participation. I think one of the things that I have always said many times about the government is communication. And I can give you an example and say, for example, say during referendum, how come every person is normally given a draft of a constitution to read? Then why is it so difficult for other things not to be cascaded in the same way and the same kind of, inclusion? You know, there is no inclusion. That lack of inclusion and also lack of understanding of businesses and sectors in Kenya is making it so difficult for implementation of all these laws or all these amendments and these proposals. Why can't the government take everything slowly? Of course, there is an end that they have in mind. They're still going to meet that end. But let us not rush. Can we have little can they bring this in a way that everyone understands so that Kenyans don't feel like they are being pressed so hard? You can imagine, Chacha, we've just come from a place of COVID. Globally, no one has recovered from COVID. We've come from a point where even our exchange rate was so bad, we are doing bad economically. So that means there's so much going on at the same time, then the finance bill becomes and looks like it's oppressive.
Well,
I think these are the issues that need to be addressed.
Well, thank you so much, Ruth Kinyanjui. She's an economist who has joined us this morning. Now, to Honorable Rico, I understand you have a rejoinder for that. Of course, the opinion from Ruth Kinyanjui, but as well from Honorable Mark Mwenje. Let's now focus also on today's threats to stage demonstrations, where it is dubbed as the 1 million people march, heading all the way to State House. And this, of course, is to push for compensation and justice for victims of police atrocities. What do you make of it?
Okay, Chacha, let me just give my rejoinder on what my colleagues have said about. First of all, let's appreciate the Constitution of Kenya 2010. And let's appreciate again the role of Parliament in public participation. There has never been a year or a period where all stakeholders have been engaged in finance bill. Right from the time I entered Parliament, I have been informed by my colleagues there has never been public participation on finance bill the way we did for these last 2 years. So let's appreciate first what the government has done in terms of public participation, because we invited more than 1,000 stakeholders to give their views or interest on Finance Bill 2024. So let's appreciate that first.
Well, the focus now on the demos.
Secondly, on the issue of the demos, I want to ask Kenyans, I want to ask the patriotic Kenyans that your message was communicated to the leadership of Kenya, and specifically to the President of Kenya, and specifically we as members of Asimio who oppose the bill. Please, listen to us. The President has listened to you. He has done what you had indicated, what you had requested the President to do, and he has rejected the bill. So let's wait on what will take place in the next 20 days. But let me tell you, 14 days is meant for the President. 7 days is meant for Parliament to execute what has been referred to Parliament, giving a total of 21 days. And to the leadership, that is the President and Deputy President, the leader of opposition, His Excellency Engineer Raila Amolo Odinga, our former President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, please have a sitting, make a joint statement with the President of the Republic of Kenya, ask the citizens of Kenya. They have listened to their cries, and the President has done what he has done. So, please, I beg again, listen to us.
Honorable James Gakuya, you know, there is something unusual that happened yesterday in Parliament. First of all, we, the media, were barred from accessing the premises on grounds that they were still assessing the damages as a result of Tuesday's demonstrations. And the live stream for the Parliament Broadcasting Unit was also shut down. And according to a tweet from the one that read a member of Parliament, Otende Amolo, Parliament approved a motion by the Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah for a record 30 minutes to allow deployment of KDF to help police, or at any point come out to help the police deal with protesters. And with today's 1 million people march, are there fears that KDF could end up committing also atrocities as witnessed on Tuesday?
One, let me say, I wasn't able to participate in that early morning session, but procedurally, any introduction of KDF or military to the force has to be approved by the National Assembly.
So you fault the decision that they came out on Tuesday before Parliament proceeded with this particular approval?
One
is to blame.
Let us agree that, in fact, sometimes there is what we call emergency. That's why there is always a window. In case there is an emergency in the country, you can apply 2 to 3 and have emergency funds. Also, in a certain emergency like what the situation was, I think you can apply that, but subject to ratification by the House. That can be done. And
Which law is that?
No, let me say for sure, if emergency comes in, then you cannot allow the country to vacate. You should, as a head of state...
But there was no state of emergency that was declared, and that's the argument that the LSK has also...
One, the president has to root that. He has to declare the state of emergency before applying the KDF.
So it was wrong for CS Duale to release...
It was a long foot, and even it was a long pronouncement for the CS to pronounce that. He could have done the corrective measure first so that the procedure could be in order. Well, and therefore, something was out of order.
Honorable Mwenje, KDF now would deal with protesters as it is now. And, you know, the argument from the National Assembly in the tweet that was posted on their pages, we could not be there, or we were not there yesterday, is that now that, you know, the National Assembly is proceeding for a short recess until 23rd July, at any point should there be a need to use or to deploy KDF, then they could proceed ahead and do so.
You're absolutely right. The way that motion was passed, and I was on the floor, and yesterday, unfortunately, the government side played a game with us because they sneaked this in the supplementary order paper. So by the time we got some of our troops to get to Parliament, it was a bit late. But anyway, we tried our best. I'm sure some of the stories you've heard of what happened in Parliament are true. Whether they're accurate or not. No, I'll not reveal who was doing that. But we were fighting. My main issue, my main problem with the motion is how it is crafted. Because the way it is crafted, it allows the president to call for KDF whenever he feels there's a bit of insecurity touching on any part of Kenya. Including, he can. With that motion, the way it stands, he can. We were trying to plead with the government. Fine. You've put your point that we do need this additional KDF. But can we craft this motion in a way that the president cannot abuse it? The way it is, in my opinion, he can go until 2027, put in the military whenever he wants. And more importantly, even in Parliament itself. Because we do have police officers who come into Parliament to assess the situation. What happens if the military assesses that there's insecurity in Parliament because members of Azimio have disagreed with Kenya Kwanza?
Let's see what Kenyans are saying as far as this conversation this morning is concerned. That is via social media platforms at K24 TV, Joel Chacha, as well on our SMS and WhatsApp numbers on the bottom of your screens. Brenda, Arego saying President William Ruto wants dialogue. Gen Z and millennials, we are leaderless, and it's now appropriate that we all join him on his table in State House. Ali Mohammed, I concede President Ruto has listened to the people's concerns and declined to sign the Finance Bill 2024 into law, a bold leadership that should be celebrated as the new model of governance from Africa, where the youthful public make demands for improvement in governance and national affairs, not just as elections, and the leadership listens and course corrects. Titus Sang, withdrawal of the bill showed that William Ruto listened. Let's forgive him. Dan Ojoa, good morning Kenya and Africa. We meet at State House, Nairobi. Parliament must repeal Finance Bill 2024 before 14 days expire, and Ruto must resign. James Mutinda, dear Gen Z and associates, you remain tribeless, leaderless and partyless since day one of protesting against Finance Bill 2024. The mission was don't amend but reject the bill in totality. Going to State House was an afterthought, and which is treasonable. Charles Karimi, I'm not for Mandamano today. Our main focus was withdrawal of the Finance Bill 2024, and that is what the president has done. Jimmy Murathi, dear courageous Gen Z, you have achieved your goal number one, rejection of Finance Bill 2024. To achieve other goals of good governance, you don't need demos, you need a different strategy. Stop it. Marco Ntaya, we shall not relent. These more than the Finance Bill 2024. It's a fight to liberate our country from criminal masquerading as leaders. Now to Honorable Ariko. Before that, Samson Mungathia, having achieved the objective of bringing down the Finance Bill 2024, it's time to let the country move on. Our voices were heard loud and clear amidst the brutality and violence. Let's let patriotism prevail. Let us not be polarized by politicians pursuing personal agenda. Honorable Ariko, as we wind up on this matter also of the KDF deployment,
Okay, thank you, Chacha. The issue of KDF deployment. Personally, Turkana County has been a beneficiary of KDF deployment, which have resulted to some kind of peace between the warring communities in Turkana and West Pokot. On the issue currently we are facing on KDF deployment, I think the government was wrong in the first place by deploying KDF first on Tuesday, then on Wednesday they sought for that Article 241(3)(c). But what was declared by the Defense Minister on Kanye Gazette notice is Article 241(3)(b), which is totally different from what is taking place in the country. But I want to ask Kenyans, we did public participation to our best as a committee. We did public participation. All stakeholders were listened to. You can confirm from all the stakeholders. The other thing again, when you are giving responsibility to leaders, all of us cannot be members of parliament. All of us cannot be a president. This is one position which you've bestowed the responsibilities of representing you in making decisions. So what am I saying? I'm saying sometimes it is difficult to make all of us participate. But when there's a representation of stakeholders, let's consider that public participation has taken place. And the president has listened to us, the opposition or the members of Azimio and the members of public who were crying for this.
Honorable Gakuya, in 30 seconds or below.
One, I would like to address to our young generation, which has been the big picture in these demos, that according to the post that actually you have read, most of them have seen sense, and their major concern was the total withdrawal of this particular bill, and they are asking the rest of their members that, yes, let us not ruin this country, let us put this country into anarchy, let us also have a nation that actually all of us enjoy on. So we have achieved your goal, first goal, and we can make other demands on a different way other than demos.
Thank you. Honorable Mark Munja.
To me, I just want to say, no, as much as we have the right to protest, I'd ask our youth, our Gen Zs to let us not lose lives recklessly, especially young lives. Let us not destroy the property. They've shown they can bring good leadership to this country. But I also want to add that we only have Kenya, and we must take care of our country as a whole. Well,
thank you so much, Honorable Mark Mwenje. He is the Embakasi West Member of Parliament, also the Deputy Minority Whip in the National Assembly. Honorable Dr. John Ariko, Member of the Finance Committee and the Turkana South Member of Parliament, and as well Honorable James Gakuya, who is the Chair of the Trade Committee and the Member of Parliament in Embakasi North, and as well Ruth Kinyanju, who is an economist who joined us via a phone link. It has been a conversation on what next for Kenya. My name is Joel Chacha. Do enjoy the rest of the viewing.
K24 TV Mix Master. Leoni kufinish tomalo like a boss. Yo, when it comes to playing the best music videos, we've got you covered. Check this out. Caribbean,